Crowd erupts for Poilievre as Carney hit with crushing rejection in Calgary. The atmosphere in Calgary was charged with anticipation. Political leaders from across the country had ascended on the Stampede, hoping to connect with locals and show a bit of Western flair. Among them was Prime Minister Mark Carney, who, despite his polished image and international resume, attempted to fit in with the crowd by donning the expected cowboy attire, hat, boots, the whole ensemble. But his grand entrance didn't go as planned. What should have been a show of solidarity turned into an awkward moment. The reaction from the crowd was stark: scattered claps, a few murmurs, and some unmistakable boos. It wasn't just lukewarm, it was cold, and the optics were hard to ignore. Then came Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. He too wore the cowboy hat, but the reception couldn't have been more different. As soon as he and his wife Anna appeared, the crowd lit up. Applause roared. People shouted his name. Dozens waved. He moved through the crowd like someone deeply familiar with the terrain, not just physically but politically and emotionally. The people in Calgary didn't just welcome him, they embraced him. It wasn't just about the outfit or the occasion, it was about trust, connection, and momentum. In that moment, it was crystal clear who had struck a deeper chord. Critics, especially on social media and in some mainstream outlets, were quick to call Poilievre's cowboy appearance staged or performative. But many failed to apply the same scrutiny to Carney, who had done the exact same thing, worn the hat, posed for the cameras, and tried to appeal to Western sensibilities. The difference was not in the outfit, but in how each man was received. At the Stampede, cowboy hats are a tradition, not a political statement. Locals know the difference between someone who's just trying to fit in and someone who genuinely resonates with their values. The April 28th snap federal election had already thrown the country into a whirlwind. Mark Carney, who had only recently replaced Justin Trudeau as Liberal leader, surprised many by winning the election and forming a minority government. Carney campaigned on experience, global credibility, and economic stability. He portrayed himself as the steady hand in turbulent times. But the win, while legitimate, wasn't a landslide. It was razor-thin in many regions and came down to voter uncertainty rather than full enthusiasm. In Calgary, that disconnect was visible in real time. Pierre Poilievre, meanwhile, had built a reputation on fiery rhetoric and laser-focused messaging. His platform emphasized personal freedom, economic responsibility, and government accountability. He zeroed in on affordability issues and a bloated bureaucracy, points that hit hard in the West, where many feel overtaxed and underrepresented. His ability to connect with people outside of scripted talking points has become one of his greatest political strengths. That was on full display at the Stampede, where he didn't just show up, he connected. It's not that Carney lacks credentials. As a former governor of the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, he's one of the most experienced financial minds to ever enter Canadian politics. But that's also part of the problem. In places like Calgary, he's seen as the ultimate insider. Elite. Global. A man of finance, not grit. Poilievre, on the other hand, grew up with more modest means. His life story of hard work and perseverance appeals to a generation of Canadians who feel left behind by policies they believe favor corporate interests and centralized control. One major point of frustration has been the federal tax system. Many Canadians feel they're being squeezed on every front: income taxes, sales taxes, gas taxes, property taxes, and even estate taxes. And it's not just the ultra-wealthy. Middle-class families are feeling the pinch, with some reporting effective tax burdens that leave them questioning why they're working so hard just to give it all away. Poilievre has tapped into that frustration, promising tax cuts and a crackdown on government waste. While Carney has acknowledged the tax burden and made vague promises about reviewing rates, it hasn't been enough to convince skeptics that real change is coming. At the heart of this divide is a deeper cultural split. Carney embodies a more technocratic, top-down approach to governance, where policies are crafted by experts and implemented with a long-term global vision. Poilievre represents a more grassroots, bottom-up style, listening to what average Canadians say they need now and pushing back against what he sees as elite overreach. The Stampede made that contrast tangible. Carney's cold reception wasn't just about one bad moment. It was a reflection of deeper dissatisfaction among voters who feel ignored. That dissatisfaction isn't limited to taxation. Issues like housing affordability, crime, infrastructure decay, and government transparency are boiling over across the country. In the West, there's an added layer of resentment, the feeling that Ottawa doesn't understand or care about their unique challenges. Poilievre has leaned into that regional discontent, promising not only reform but respect. He talks about treating Western provinces not as afterthoughts, but as equal partners in the country's future. Despite losing the election, Poilievre left Calgary with something arguably more valuable than votes: momentum. His reception at the Stampede is just one example of how his message is catching fire. It wasn't staged or engineered by campaign consultants. It was organic, loud, and real. Carney, though now in power, has a much tougher road ahead. Winning a federal election is one thing. Winning the trust of skeptical Canadians, particularly in regions that feel disconnected from Ottawa, is something else entirely. If Carney wants to build a legacy, he'll need to do more than balance the books. He'll need to connect with Canadians in ways that go beyond fiscal policy. That means showing up in places like Calgary, not just to be seen but to listen and engage meaningfully. The Stampede was a wake-up call. Symbolic, yes, but deeply revealing. Carney's ideas might be sound on paper, but they need to be grounded in public trust. And right now, in some parts of the country, that trust is on shaky ground. As for Poilievre, his focus now will be on holding the Liberals accountable in a minority parliament. He'll keep pressing on affordability, tax reform, and government overreach, areas where many Canadians still feel underserved. If the reaction in Calgary is any indicator, he's not going away. In fact, he's only getting louder. Ultimately, the Stampede wasn't just a parade or a political pit stop. It was a stage where two visions for Canada collided, one polished, one populist, and the crowd chose sides. Whether that moment translates into future victories remains to be seen. But if public sentiment counts for anything, Pierre Poilievre just got a standing ovation in the heart of Liberal resistance, and that's not something to ignore.